I don't shout. I sign the end.
I watched her upload the picture at exactly 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. I know the precise time because I stared at my phone screen for a solid 40 minutes straight, watching the comment count tick upward like some kind of heart rate monitor going absolutely haywire. There she was with Derek, both of them holding champagne flutes in some dimly lit restaurant that probably cost more per plate than most people spend on groceries in a month. That signature smirk was plastered across her face, the one she always pulls when she thinks she's completely untouchable. His arm was draped casually behind her chair back, possessive and comfortable. The caption read, "Finally found my actual soulmate this week," followed by a champagne emoji and a red heart. I didn't leave a comment, didn't send her a text message, didn't even let myself blink for what felt like an eternity. I just took 3 careful screenshots, backed them up in different cloud storage locations, and then forwarded the entire package to the last person she ever expected would get involved in any of this mess. Because while she was out there performing her little theatrical act for the entire world to see, she completely forgot something crucial about the man she married. I don't make threats twice. Ever. The warning itself wasn't even loud or dramatic. No yelling, no doors slamming, no dishes breaking. Just a quiet Sunday morning with her suitcase sitting half-zipped on our bedroom floor and the smell of bacon and slightly burnt toast filling the air downstairs. I was pouring her coffee when I said it, using the same casual tone I always do. Cream, no sugar, just the way she pretends she likes it when clients are watching her every move. "If you post another picture with that guy," I said as calmly as discussing the weather, "I'm done. No drama, no second chances, just done." She didn't even bother looking up from her laptop screen where she was probably crafting another insufferable post about leadership synergy or whatever corporate buzzword was trending that week. "It's just Derek, relax," she muttered dismissively, fingers still typing away. But no, it wasn't just Derek anymore. Not by a long shot. Harmless people don't send your wife text messages past midnight accompanied by champagne emojis and messages saying good luck tomorrow. Harmless people don't accidentally leave their expensive cufflinks on your bathroom sink counter. Yeah, I found those about 3 weeks ago, sitting right there next to her moisturizer. Never said a single word about it, though, because I don't play the game to win quickly. I play the long game to win permanently. She'd been doing this elaborate dance for months now. Conference after conference, business trip after business trip, always with the same excuses. Derek's just in my department, he's completely harmless. But harmless people don't behave the way he was behaving, leaving traces of themselves all over my house and my marriage. This whole situation wasn't even purely about infidelity at that point. I probably could have stomached the lies, the passive-aggressive little digs she'd throw my way, the fact that she started buying 2 of absolutely everything like she was methodically splitting a future I wasn't going to be part of. No, this was about something far worse than simple cheating. This was about public disrespect. The kind that doesn't whisper behind your back in dark corners, but laughs directly in your face under bright lights. The kind that makes other people in your social circle start thinking they can treat you the same way because you've been marked as someone who tolerates humiliation. She knew exactly what she was doing when she posted that photo. She uploaded it during a company dinner event, dressed like she was selling designer perfume in a courtroom, all dramatic and attention-seeking. All her coworkers immediately flooded the comments section with heart emojis and slay queen and power couple garbage, like they weren't actively watching a woman detonate her own marriage with a self-satisfied smirk on her face. I didn't block her social media accounts. I didn't rage or throw my phone across the room. I just waited patiently until the comments quieted down around midnight, and then picked up my phone to send the email draft I'd actually written several weeks ago. Subject line, conflict of interest, immediate review required. Derek, you see, was already on extremely shaky legal ground. And me? I'm the quiet little husband she consistently forgot to mention is actually the lead attorney for the plaintiff in the case that might completely end his professional career. I hadn't disclosed our personal connection, because there legitimately hadn't been one worth mentioning until that exact moment. She'd made him part of her personal narrative with that post, and that decision made him fair game in ways she couldn't begin to comprehend. You'd think that's where this story ends, right? Like boom, the moment she clicked post, it was all over in one dramatic swoop. But no, this wasn't some Hollywood gotcha moment with dramatic music and shocked faces. This was a slow, spiraling collapse, like watching a glass of expensive red wine topple over in slow motion across a pristine white rug, and I had been holding the edge of that table the entire time, just waiting for the right moment. She came home 4 days later acting like absolutely nothing had happened, waving cheerfully from her Uber, her suitcase rolling behind her, lips already moving about some keynote speaker she'd heard, and how the boutique hotel forgot her vegan breakfast order for the third morning in a row. She had no idea what was coming. Not yet. But the shift started that very night. First came the changed locks, then came the envelope sitting on the guest bed, and then would come the phone call from her boss that would change everything. The very first comment under her photo read "Power Couple," with a fire emoji attached. Then came a cascade of hearts, champagne bottles, and the predictable, "You guys look amazing" nonsense from the same clique of office echo chambers that congratulated each other on every single minor achievement like they were winning Nobel Prizes for answering emails. She absolutely soaked it all in, naturally. That photo was her dopamine fix for the entire week, the digital high of being seen and admired, flaunting a version of herself she thought was completely invincible and immune to consequences. She never stopped to ask herself why Derek looked so stiff and uncomfortable in the photo, why his smile was noticeably thinner than usual, why his arm didn't quite commit to the wraparound pose she was clearly angling for. She definitely didn't notice that his eyes weren't actually on the camera lens. They were focused on someone just out of frame, probably the waiter hovering nearby, or maybe the woman 2 tables over who just recognized him from LinkedIn. Or worse, recognized him from the lawsuit proceedings. Because here's the truth she didn't know and likely still doesn't fully grasp even now. Derek is being sued, not for something minor and cute like failing to meet quarterly sales objectives or missing a deadline. No, he's currently under active litigation for breach of fiduciary duty, contractual fraud, and violating a confidentiality clause that was so airtight it might as well have been written in blood and sealed with wax. And the plaintiff, a mid-sized fintech company from Austin, Texas, that lost 7 figures because Derek thought he was slick enough to advise a direct competitor under the table while still employed. And me? I'm the attorney handling that entire case. Oh yes, just imagine that irony for a moment. Your wife is out there parading her real partner online while he's neck deep in legal quicksand, and her husband is literally the one holding the shovel that's burying him. I'd kept my professional involvement completely quiet up until this point. There'd been absolutely no reason to disclose the connection. She never talked about Derek at home beyond surface-level updates about office politics. And I'm not the jealous type by nature, but I am exceptionally observant. I knew from the very first time she mentioned his name with that little flick of excitement in her voice like she was chewing on candy that he was going to matter later. Turns out later came faster than either of them expected. I didn't send an angry text message. I didn't blow up her inbox with accusations. I wrote one single professional email. Conflict of interest, potential leverage requires immediate attention. I sent it to the managing partner at my firm and CC'd senior counsel for good measure. I attached exactly 2 screenshots, one of the Instagram post in all its glory, and one of her LinkedIn profile clearly showing she and Derek worked for the exact same company on the same client portfolio during the same time frame when the breach occurred. I included absolutely no emotional commentary, just the hard facts. Let them speak louder than any threat ever could. See, the fundamental problem with people like Derek, and increasingly people like her, is they forget the details that matter. They chase ego validation and forget about paper trails. They post selfies for likes and forget about NDAs they've signed. They think a heart emoji is just validation, not a potential exhibit in legal discovery. And her? She thought this was just some harmless, flirty snapshot for social media attention. She didn't consider for even 1 second that it showed proximity, showed alignment, that it created the impression, however unproven, that she may have been feeding him inside information, or worse, softening client resistance through her personal connections. All speculative, of course, but speculation is incredibly dangerous in both courtrooms and boardrooms alike. I didn't need to scream at her. I didn't need to threaten her with divorce papers or post some passive-aggressive response on my own social media. I just needed to introduce enough noise into the legal process to trigger formal scrutiny. And oh, it worked beautifully. Within exactly 24 hours, Derek's inbox lit up with an internal escalation notice. Urgent review required, outside relationships, potential ethics breach. The firm's general counsel was copied on the email chain. His face reportedly went completely pale during their morning video call. And she, still completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding, was texting him cute selfies from the airport terminal, telling him how they owned the internet this week. Owned, huh? More like leased, with absolutely no security deposit and a clause they never bothered reading. But here's the best part, the real slow, simmering beauty of it all. I wasn't done, not even close. That email wasn't the nuclear bomb. It was just the tap on the glass, the quiet reminder that some of us aren't here to fight loudly. We're here to wait patiently and strike precisely. The meeting took place in a small conference room on the 23rd floor of our building. Frosted glass walls, filtered natural light, expensive leather chairs, the kind of corporate setting where polite voices with measured tones systematically dismantle personal empires. I walked in carrying a leather-bound file folder and a thermos of coffee I never actually unscrewed throughout the entire meeting. The moment I laid that folder on the polished conference table, the entire room atmosphere sharpened noticeably. 3 partners sat across from me in their tailored suits. Lead counsel, litigation strategist, and a senior associate who probably hadn't blinked in 45 minutes straight. No one spoke at first. They all knew instinctively this wasn't a routine case update. I opened the folder slowly, deliberately. The first sheet? A printed copy of the Instagram post, black and white, no color needed when the damage was already bleeding into legal relevance. The second document? A snapshot of her company's organizational chart with both her and Derek's roles circled in red marker. Same department, same vertical hierarchy, both tied to a client platform that had mysteriously pulled out of negotiations right before Derek's under-the-table consulting detour first surfaced. The third document? A brief professional biography of my wife emphasizing her direct involvement in managing fintech accounts. Not written by me, mind you. That was taken straight from her own speaking engagement bio at last year's Digital Compliance Conference. She'd bragged extensively about her cross-sector collaboration abilities and high-trust rapport with legacy clients. Her exact words, not mine. Then I spoke, keeping my voice level and professional. Her post may significantly complicate Derek's defense strategy. No one laughed. No one asked clarifying questions. They all immediately understood what I was implying without me saying the actual words outright. Impropriety, undue influence, implied collusion. You don't have to accuse people outright in these kinds of rooms. You just stack the documented facts like dominoes, slide the first one forward ever so slightly, and let the silence push it over. The litigation strategist, a man named Morrison, leaned forward with interest. Do you personally believe she had access to privileged information? I paused for effect, then shrugged casually. She had pillow talk access. Morrison smiled, but there was absolutely nothing kind or warm in that expression. That's admissible under perception of bias, if opposing counsel can't conclusively disprove it, he noted. Exactly, I confirmed. You see, we didn't actually have to prove she did anything legally wrong. The mere existence of that post, combined with the caption, the timing, and their joint professional connection to a disputed account created an atmosphere of doubt. And in law, perception is legitimately half the war. You make a jury feel doubt even for a single second, and suddenly hard facts don't matter nearly as much. Only compelling narratives do. Morrison turned to the strategist sitting beside him. We've been waiting for a variable exactly like this, an opening. Something emotional that creates reasonable doubt. I nodded in agreement. You have it now. They didn't ask why I'd waited this long to bring it forward. They didn't care that I was legally married to the woman in question. This was war conducted through paperwork. Personal feelings don't make it into the official minutes. I just passed them one final document to seal the deal. The exact date of the company retreat where Derek allegedly had improper access to documents he shouldn't have seen, and a photo from that same corporate trip showing her security badge clipped directly to his lanyard. Let's just say, I murmured quietly, they were close. The room went still again, everyone processing the implications. Derek received an email after lunch. Urgent disclosure required, respond within 24 hours. It came from an external risk consultancy their general counsel contracted, a small, specialized firm known for forensic ethics audits. When you hear from them, a fire's already started and you're either the spark or fuel. The message was crystal clear. Full disclosure required of all personal interactions, off-site meetings, digital communications, and shared system access over 12 months. Non-compliance gets immediately escalated to HR and legal departments. Derek didn't breathe for a full 20 seconds. Then he panicked and immediately texted her. What did you tell your husband? She was boarding a connecting flight, probably mid-latte. blissfully unaware that the caption she posted purely for attention had just cracked open a formal ethics investigation. By the time she finally replied, "Nothing, relax," it was already too late for any damage control, because HR wasn't waiting around for explanations. The photo had circulated internally through official channels, not through office gossip, but through a flagged compliance alert. Their company's compliance bot, a lovely piece of artificial intelligence they'd bragged about extensively at last year's leadership summit, had picked up on the image through automated image scraping, facial recognition technology, and geotagging capabilities. It matched Derek's face, her profile picture, and their firm's account portfolio in under 6 minutes flat. That post wasn't just professionally embarrassing anymore, it was legally damning. Derek's name appeared on Slack messages. Her initials were buried in metadata from shared presentation files. None of it was conclusive proof of wrongdoing yet, but now that the spotlight had shifted onto their relationship, absolutely everything became potential evidence. Even the way they looked at each other in previous company photos would be up for detailed dissection. Derek's direct supervisor scheduled an emergency call with no agenda listed, just "join now" in the meeting invite. He spent half the call muttering defensive phrases. "It was nothing. We just had dinner. It's not like that." The supervisor didn't argue or raise his voice. He just said flatly, "Then why are we getting a potential pre-litigation inquiry with your face prominently featured in it?" Meanwhile, at her firm, HR had already quietly opened an internal review. Her assistant, who used to practically idolize her, had been asked to provide all calendar logs for the last 6 months. The team lead was pulled into a closed-door meeting and asked if any client-facing documents had been shared outside the normal communications protocol. Her name came up more than once in that conversation because the photo wasn't just unprofessional. It suggested intimacy, familiarity, maybe access to sensitive information. And in the corporate world, even the perception of collusion is often punished harder than actual proven misconduct because it stains everyone associated. She got home Thursday evening, the wheels of her carry-on echoing down our front walkway like a slow drum roll announcing something ominous. Her makeup was smudged from a layover nap, her blouse was creased, but she still wore that same breezy post-conference glow, like she'd just stepped off a stage and into another chapter of self-congratulation. Then her key didn't work in the lock. She jiggled the handle once, then again with more force. Nothing happened. She stared at the door, her brow wrinkling, not out of panic yet, but mild inconvenience, like a vending machine had eaten her dollar. She knocked once, more out of wounded pride than necessity. The door opened within seconds. I was standing there in a casual shirt with sleeves rolled up, holding a glass of water, acting like nothing had changed. But everything had. "Key's been updated," I said flatly, no emotion. "You'll be staying in the guest room for now." She let out a tight, humorless laugh, dragging her suitcase over the threshold. "Wow, really? Is this your revenge arc? Locked doors and silent treatments?" "No revenge," I replied calmly. "Just boundaries. Something you said we should both be better at implementing." She looked around the house. The space felt colder, cleaner, as if someone had already started systematically deleting her presence. She walked down the hallway to the guest room with growing unease. Bare walls, unfamiliar sheets on the bed, and a thick envelope with her name in typed letters sitting prominently on the nightstand. Neat, professional, ironic. She opened it with a scoff, assuming it was some petty written statement. Inside was a copy of our prenuptial agreement printed on firm legal paper, the kind that feels like it should be stamped in wax. Her signature on the bottom corner, clear as day. She remembered signing it years ago, the week before the wedding after a long, wine-fueled conversation about protecting our individual assets. But there was something else that made her blood run cold. A highlighted clause, yellow ink, precise box drawn around specific text. In the event of public actions resulting in damage to the shared financial estate, including but not limited to reputational harm, extramarital entanglements, or public association with litigated parties, this agreement is subject to immediate reassessment and asset protection amendments at the discretion of the unaffected party. Her smirk twitched, barely holding its shape. "This wasn't in the original agreement," she muttered, flipping frantically to the last page. That's when her stomach dropped completely. The amendment date? August 14th of the previous year, a full year ago, not last week. Not during this conference season. He'd been planning this long before the wine glass photo, long before Derek entered the picture, long before she even started testing the limits of our marriage. She stared at the date again, as if the numbers might somehow shift if she glared hard enough. He had updated the prenup and she'd signed it, her own signature, right next to the notary's official stamp. She hadn't actually read it, probably just skimmed the first few lines, assumed it was routine housekeeping, something about refinancing or estate planning adjustments. He'd even called it a household security review when she asked about it casually. And she, distracted, overconfident, self-assured, had nodded, signed, and gone back to her podcast about high-performance leadership habits. "Is this even legal?" she snapped, walking back into the hallway with the papers clutched in her hand. "I didn't look up from the book I was reading. It was notarized. You signed it." "Yes, you tricked me," she hissed. "No," I said without inflection. "I prepared for you." She didn't reply, couldn't find words. Because the worst part wasn't that he'd updated the prenup without her really noticing. It wasn't even that she'd signed away her position without actually reading it. The worst part was realizing just how early he'd stopped trusting her. A year ago, maybe earlier, how many dinners had they sat through while he was already drafting contingencies? How many weekend getaways had she treated like Instagram content while he quietly moved assets, rewrote clauses, and checked her ego against legal precedent? Inside the envelope was a second document, smaller, a summary of the amendment effects. It included bullet points: shared liquid assets frozen pending evaluation, real property reassignment review scheduled, any financial liabilities incurred due to public entanglements no longer shared between parties. There was also a handwritten note at the bottom in his familiar script. "I didn't make you choose him, but I did make sure your choice wouldn't bankrupt me." Friday morning, the phone buzzed just as she was finishing her second espresso and trying desperately to convince herself that what happened the night before was just some ridiculous, calculated tantrum. He'd cool off eventually. He always did. He was methodical and careful, sure, but not cruel or vindictive. Right? She picked up the call without even checking the screen first. "Hey, I'm just about to—" "Don't talk, just listen." It was her boss, her actual boss. Not the project lead or the team coordinator, but the person who could erase her career with one sentence. And they sounded absolutely furious. "Derek's attorney just contacted us," the voice snapped, ice cold and crisp. "They're flagging a conflict of interest. Legal exposure, timeline overlap. He's under investigation and your name is now tied to all of it." She stood up fast. Coffee spilled onto her blouse, but she didn't even notice the hot liquid. Wait, what are you talking about? I haven't said anything. I haven't—" "You don't have to say anything," her boss interrupted sharply. "You posed for it. Did you make that man post that photo with you?" It hit like a backhand. She froze, words dying in her throat completely. Her boss continued, voice rising with each word. "We just received notice that our firm may be dragged into a formal complaint for housing 2 individuals connected to an active federal-level commercial litigation. And if that photo becomes a key exhibit, we're not just looking at ethics reviews. We're looking at reputation damage, serious board-level optics problems. Clients will start asking uncomfortable questions." She tried to respond. "I didn't. I mean, he posted it, but—" "Save it," her boss snapped. "You've been benched. Effective immediately." Her legs buckled slightly. "Benched? For how long?" "Indefinitely." There was no apology, no discussion, no room for negotiation. Just the clean, cold tone of someone distancing themselves from a mess before the smell stuck to their expensive shoes. "Do not come into the office. HR will contact you directly. And if you even think about posting anything personal or otherwise related to this case, your badge won't be the only thing we revoke." Click. The email came in mid-afternoon. Subject line simple and bloodless. "Client request, representation adjustment." She opened it, expecting a reassignment, maybe someone stepping back temporarily while HR sorted through the noise. But the name at the top stopped her cold. Greystone Financial, one of the firm's oldest, steadiest clients, the kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't complain, doesn't even call unless the building is literally burning. They'd been with her company for over a decade. She'd worked their account personally for the last 3 years. Dinners, handshakes, late-night calls across time zones. She'd built rapport, trust, loyalty. And now they wanted her off the account, permanently. The message was brief, as if less language made the request easier to digest. Due to recent developments and optics surrounding ongoing litigation associated with Derek and the emergence of public-facing content implying intimate association with one of our key consultants during an active legal dispute, Greystone is requesting an immediate and permanent change in client representation. We cannot risk reputational spillover. Reputational spillover. Like she was radioactive waste that would contaminate everything she touched. The legal blog post hit later that evening. One of those sharp, cynical pieces that starts slow and ends with a scalpel. Niche readership, but dangerously influential among corporate compliance officers and legal professionals. It was titled, "When Intimacy Meets the Ethics of Undisclosed Relationships in High-Stakes Cases." She was in the banner image. Not her name initially, but her face was unmistakable. The same wineglass photo cropped tighter this time, zoomed in on her and Derek smiling like a couple on vacation. Caption preserved at the bottom like a cigarette warning label. "Finally found my actual soulmate this week." The article absolutely shredded them. It didn't accuse directly, but that made it worse in many ways. It implied repeatedly, asked leading questions designed to plant doubt. Can a firm protect client interests while housing private entanglements with opposing parties? What duty does HR have to screen for silent liabilities when photos go public? What happens when harmless becomes twisted into ammunition? It named her firm specifically, quoted sections of Derek's pending litigation, used her image to color everything, not as a person with agency, but as a symbol of corporate negligence and ethical failure. By 9 p.m., it had been reposted by 2 compliance newsletters and an accountancy ethics group with a combined audience in the tens of thousands. And in the comments section, a familiar name appeared. One of her own former colleagues had written, "Used to work with her directly. Not surprised this happened." She wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she refreshed it again and again, like a compulsion she couldn't control. She waited until after midnight to call Ava, her college best friend who stood at their wedding, who knew everything about her, who once drove 6 hours to bail her out of a terrible situation. "Thank God you picked up," she said, relief flooding her voice. "Everything's insane. People are blowing this completely out of proportion. I just need someone who actually knows me." "You lied to me," Ava said quietly, her voice measured and careful. "What?" "You said it was nothing. You said you and Derek were just friends, that your husband was being paranoid and controlling." "We were just friends," she insisted desperately. "That photo was a joke. It was sarcasm. I didn't think—" "Exactly," Ava cut in sharply. "You didn't think—" Silence hung heavy between them. "I defended you," Ava continued, her tone sharper now. "When the blog post came out, when Greystone pulled out, when the partners started poking around asking questions about you, I said it was nonsense, that it was all overblown media drama creating something from nothing. And now I'm being asked directly if I knew anything about your relationship with him." She tried to steady her voice. "Knew what? That I went to dinner with a coworker? That we took a picture together?" "No," Ava said, exhaling hard. "That you were sleeping with a man involved in an open case tied directly to your husband's firm. That you used your position to get him into that client meeting last quarter. That you, whether you meant to or not, opened the door for a massive compliance nightmare that's now affecting multiple companies." "That is absolutely not what happened." "Doesn't matter anymore," Ava said flatly. "Perception is reality now in this situation. And your husband warned you. I was there, remember? That brunch the Sunday before Denver? I saw the look on his face when you brushed him off like he was being ridiculous. You laughed at him. You said, and I quote exactly, 'You're not going to survive in the modern world if a photo hurts your fragile ego.' And then you literally toasted Derek right in front of him. Silence stretched between them like a chasm. I heard him say it clearly," Ava went on. "If you post another photo with that guy, I am done. No second chances. I can't be part of this disaster. I have a mortgage, a career I've worked incredibly hard to build. I'm not going to let myself be buried in your fallout." Click. The call ended abruptly. No goodbye, no final words of comfort. That one person, her safety net, her late-night confidant, was gone. Not even angry, just completely done. She scrolled through her contacts desperately, but every name looked foreign now. Every number felt like a potential risk. She arrived at her office building just after 8 a.m. the next morning, dressed in what she considered her power uniform. Hair perfect, heels measured, face composed. The plan was simple. Walk in confidently, make eye contact with everyone, control the narrative before it controlled her. But her security badge didn't work when she swiped it. She waved it again with more force. Nothing happened. The sensor blinked red repeatedly. 2 security guards approached with that silent choreography people use when they've done this before. "Ma'am, "We need you to step aside and wait," one said. Firm, emotionless, not disrespectful, but absolutely final. She sat on the lobby bench and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15. The hum of the lobby felt louder than usual. Phones ringing, footsteps echoing, quiet conversations happening. None of it included her anymore. Finally, someone from HR appeared. Not her usual liaison, but someone VP level in a gray suit with a leather folder tucked under her arm. No handshake, no pleasantries, no small talk, just the folder handed directly into her lap. "Effective immediately," the woman said coldly. She opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside was a sealed envelope marked by direction of General Counsel. She peeled it open carefully. Her eyes scanned the formal language. Termination of employment, reputational risk to client relationships, violation of internal ethics standards, documented conflict of interest during ongoing litigation. At the bottom, under the signature block, was a name that made her heart stop. General Counsel Matthew K., her husband's full legal name. The man she'd dismissed as not ambitious enough for her social circle. The one she'd publicly humiliated without a second thought. He hadn't yelled or made threats. He'd simply authored her professional removal with surgical precision. "Is this a mistake?" she asked, her voice cracking. "There wasn't even a formal meeting or review process." "This has been signed off by executive leadership. It's unanimous. You'll be escorted to collect personal items. Your access has been disabled. Severance terms are enclosed in the packet." She was escorted past reception, past the interns who used to ask for her advice, past the hallway where her nameplate used to hang, past the conference room where she'd pitched seven-figure deals and accepted applause. Her desk had been cleared into a standard banker's box, her nameplate already gone. No farewell card, no awkward goodbye cake, just silence and complete erasure. She came home that evening moving slower than usual, not because of traffic, but because of the specific weight that settles when you realize there's nowhere left to spin the story. He was in the living room, calmly zipping up a single suitcase, not hurried, not dramatic, just finished with everything. "We can fix this," she said, the only sentence that survived the wreckage of her voice. He looked at her for the first time in what felt like days, a gaze not filled with hatred or disappointment, just absolute clarity. The kind of look you give a building you once loved right before it's condemned and demolished. He didn't argue or list grievances. He simply handed her a folder. Inside were finalized divorce documents, clean and pre-reviewed, already signed and notarized, property reassignment papers, banking separation protocols, and the official filings for asset division under the amended prenup clause she'd signed herself without reading. On top of everything was a single sticky note written in his familiar handwriting. "You chose your real soulmate. I chose peace." She sat down hard on the nearest chair. He rolled the suitcase toward the front door. No anger, no shouting, just one quiet, intentional departure from her life. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she began, her throat catching on the words. "I know," he said evenly, without emotion. The doorbell rang suddenly. She opened it in a daze, still half in disbelief about everything. A courier stood there with an official envelope. "Delivery from the board of directors requires signature." She signed with trembling fingers, took the thick envelope, and closed the door with her shoulder. Inside was a formal demand notice on expensive letterhead. Due to the loss of multiple client contracts tied directly to her conduct and the resulting reputational harm to the company, the board was initiating proceedings for the recovery of previously issued performance bonuses. Total amount demanded, $148,250. Payment due within 15 business days. She sank slowly to the floor, the envelope falling from her lap, her body going completely numb. Upstairs, she heard the soft sound of a zipper closing one final time. Her marriage had dissolved without a single word raised in anger. Her career had been amputated by a social media caption. Her savings were evaporating behind contract clauses she used to confidently explain to other people. She looked up as he walked past her toward the door. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't need to, because he'd already said everything that mattered with his silence, his signatures, his precision. He reached the front door, opened it slowly, then paused for just one moment. She looked at him with everything broken inside her, barely breathing, desperately reaching for one last thread of connection. He didn't look back at her. He simply stepped outside and closed the door behind him, not with a dramatic bang, with peace. And that was the final cruelty she had to endure. She'd spent years desperately craving the spotlight, carefully crafting appearances, collecting applause from rooms full of people who wouldn't remember her name after dessert was served. And the man she'd consistently dismissed as just the quiet one, the passive one, the one without ambition, didn't destroy her with violence or drama. He simply disappeared her from his life with nothing but paperwork and legal documents, leaving her sitting alone on the floor of a house that no longer felt like home, holding papers that proved she'd destroyed everything herself with 4 careless words and a wine glass raised in triumph.